Brilliant. Thank you, and thank you for having me. So the talks that we've had so far have been really inspiring about innovation that we can support, the spaces we create to support them. And what I'm going to talk about a bit today is actually zooming out ever so slightly, because if we zoom out and then we look at a whole curriculum framework, how can we create the spaces to be innovative? And as educators, how can we create those spaces? Now, I am conscious that in the audience we have some students. So what I'm going to share are some lessons learnt that can be applied in any walk of life that you're doing anyway. So just for context, I am the Dean of Cardiff School of Art and Design. There are 1,200 students in that school from first years, undergrad, bachelor's to PhD. And what I'm going to be talking about is actually how do you support and facilitate innovation for our bachelor students? And what are the nuggets that enable us to do that? So I thought that actually, and this comes from the Welsh Government work that I'm doing with education and supporting creativity and innovation in children in the age of 4 to 16, because if you're going to change design, you have to start young. So that's what I decided to do, and that's what I'm doing and influencing well, she says. Then actually these terms are terms that the teachers are exposed to, and they always confuse them. They always get them mixed up. So actually I thought, you know what, I'm going to have a go and I'm going to find these definitions and I'm going to put them up there. So let's have a look at them. So creativity. Creativity is a word we hear all the time, particularly if you are creative and you're there going, thank you. Yes. How am I creative? But yes, I am creative. So actually, what is it? It's the generation of new ideas, either ways of looking at existing problems or seeing new opportunities, not to be confused with the skill of being able to draw. So quite often, have you heard that one? Oh, you're such a good drawer. You must be creative. And they're actually, you know, they are two different things. That is a skill, and that skill is required in order to be creative. But actually, it's that generation of new ideas. It's that bringing things together. So hang on, what is innovation then? So innovation is the successful exploitation of new ideas. Now, you might not like the word exploitation, but actually, it's about taking those ideas that you've had and thinking about how can these be applied so there is impact. And it's MIT that says it generates value for the world and has impact. Value is the one word that we have heard throughout all the workshops. And that's the bit that's really important. So it's about that value creation, and value in whose eyes? So what is design? Because hang on, innovation sounded like design and creativity sounded like design. But actually design is how we package creativity and innovation and how we bring it together and how we make it accessible. And it's that systematic, that strategic, it's that joining of those dots. And then I thought I'll add another one, problem solving. We always hear the term problem solving. And I think it's really important to understand that problem solving is another tool and it's a process. It's a means of going through an act in order to help us logically solve a problem. We don't have to be problem solvers to be generating new ideas, but it can help. So I thought, right, let's start with those definitions. And as we can see, and apologies, some of the letters have fallen off, but we have all heard that we are currently in, we're in complex times that we're living in. Now, I'm not sure if they're any more complex than they were 50 years ago, but we just know more about them now because we're more connected. And because we're more connected, then actually we have more of a responsibility to do something about it. But what does this mean to our students and to us individually as designers? It means that actually what we practice and how we practice now is really important. What we leave behind is really important. How we influence the future generations is so important. So my role as Dean has been actually, how can I create a curriculum for our students that spans a fine artist to a product designer, from an architect to an illustrator? How can I create that space so they are continue to question? Because only by questioning can you then eventually start adding value, and actually then we see impact and innovation will follow. I'm a firm believer that if you create the right space, innovation will definitely follow. So we are in a world that's rapidly changing, we know this, and we're preparing our students for a world where in 10 years' time, 65% of the jobs are ones that don't exist yet. That scares me. But if I was to ask you 10 years ago what jobs didn't exist that we're talking about now, it's incredible. So actually, if I'm thinking as an educator, and if you're sat here as a student and you're being upskilled for jobs that don't exist yet, then what are the attributes that you need in order to be ready for anything and to be comfortable in ambiguity? And I call it learnability, but it's definitely this constantly questioning, this constantly reflecting. So in the school that I work in, I was part of developing, and I have definitely been the one refining, I'm going to take the credit for that, a curriculum experience that is actually an interdisciplinary experience. And the reason why this is important is because it's not about disciplines coming together because you're a fine artist, you can do the drawing, or you can do the painting, or you're a graphic designer, you do the graphics, I'm the product designer, I'll do the products. It's not about that. It's actually about saying, as a fine artist, you played straight away, and you experimented straight away. And actually, as a designer, I'm always looking for the data to tell me what's the next problem. But actually, maybe I should start playing a little bit more like the fine artist. And that is the power of when you work with other people, is actually seeing how they work and how they operate, and actually them joining those dots to have a stronger team. Because in reality, when we go into the big wide world, nobody works on their own. So actually, why in education would we work on our own? So we have a framework set up that's built of 3 components in each year. You are coming in as your discipline, you are a fine artist, you are a product designer, and you will stay true to that. And you'll meander this journey. But then we give you an opportunity to go into what's called a field space, where you'll experiment, but you will collaborate. And this will be an interdisciplinary experience. Gareth and I used to run a module called Play and Creativity, funny enough, a long time ago. You'll do global challenges. You may even want to go and work in a school because you want to be an educator yourself. We will give you those spaces. You might want to set up your own business. You navigate that in those spaces, but you work with others. And then we have constellation. This is our multidisciplinary space. This is where you sit next to somebody else in a discipline, where you hear their discourse and you take it away, but you don't work with them per se on a project, because there's power in that too, where you hear other viewpoints. And this has been immensely powerful, and I'm going to play a tiny snippet at the end of one of our students who's a graphic designer who is challenging the textiles issues that are going on because he sat with textile designers. So it's about opening your eyes up in your discipline to see actually, what is going on in the other disciplines? How do other people work? What makes this work, and you've got your discipline in the middle, what makes this work is you have to constantly reflect. And I'll say for any student sat here, any practitioner, you just have to reflect. For what purpose? Why are we doing it? What's the benefit? What did I learn? What's next? It's that constant questioning piece. So the key attributes are you're grounded in your discipline. Collaboration is at its heart. It always has to be. Designed so creative risks are taken and that you do play, and physicality and making are paramount in everything that we do. Agile framework. So actually, if there is a new crisis that comes up, or actually a new company that wants to work with us, we can just say, do you know what? We're going to put it in our interdisciplinary space. So it's agile enough to work with the times. And physicality in art and design. I've said that because I really am a massive advocate for physicality, playing with stuff, making stuff straight away. That's really important to me. But what does this develop? And this is a little bit of a take-home. It develops a questioning attitude. Perspective taking, so you take it from different perspectives, and dealing with cognitive biases. So Gareth mentioned on bias in the first talk, and we do all have our own biases, and actually it's really important that we step out of those spaces, because only then will we start joining the dots and we'll start seeing innovation. So there's just a couple of, I know there's no internet here, but I thought if you wanted to take a picture of the QR code, you can, to then get another phone to QR code it later. I'm conscious of that. But actually, we have some blogs of the stories that our students tell about their experiences that actually I think are quite nice to hear, because it gives you an idea of the different perspectives and the things that were learnt and how you could view the world differently. For those who are students here, actually it gives you an idea of some projects or some things that are emerging and on the, that you hadn't considered yourself. But I also put this little quote in, which is, one of our ceramic students. Now, just remember this as well. A ceramicist doesn't, they create these beautiful pots and they fire their work. They're using all this energy and then they sell their work and then they go back and they make more work and they might exhibit it. My husband's a ceramicist. I'm not doing it much justice. But when they sit next to a product designer who's had to really think about sustainability for 20 years, all of a sudden they're like, oh, hang on, I'm feeling a little bit guilty now about firing up that gas kiln and about the off gases that are coming from this and actually about the leads that are going into my glazes. So actually what we start to do is we start to seed a difference in their thinking. And likewise, the product designers are always thinking about, well, I was thinking about mass manufacture, but actually what about craft? What about locality? What about that homing and refining of something? And all of a sudden you get this sharing of disposition that's really powerful. And that is the space then that enables innovation. And then very briefly, the constellation component I spoke about, the criticality and that reflection piece, that's the bit where you really see the magic come alive and you hear the innovation in the projects. But quite often it's unseen, isn't it? It's not in a beautiful picture or a beautiful image of your finished work. So what we have done is we've created these podcasts, and I've got literally no more than a minute because it's 20 minutes long. So I'm teasing you completely with a snippet, but just to prove how one discipline has been influenced by a different space. So I'll play that now. And again, another QR code that is hidden slightly. But these are available on Spotify. I'm particularly proud of that we got them on Spotify. But I'm going to play it. Here we go. See if it works. It is literally the beginning. It's a teaser.
I think it's very easy for consumers to sort of lose track of what they're doing, because as we're in a developed country, we don't see these clothing landfills. Whereas predominantly in South Asia, West Africa, and South America, especially in Chile, there's these huge clothing landfill. You see various pictures of it, and also because we can't necessarily see it ourselves, it's quite easy, I guess, to sort of mask it up as a manufacturer and not get consumers sort of bunged up with this idea of what's going on in the other end of the world.
Welcome to the School of Art and Design podcast. This series features conversations with undergraduate students around their final year research, driven by their experience within the interdisciplinary academic and research methods module, commonly referred to as the constellation module within the school.
Ignore the cheesy music.
Hello, I'm Sarah Smith and I am the Head of Department at Cardiff School of Art and Design for Visual Communication, and I also lead on the CARP, the Creative Enterprise Research Proposal option for the dissertation module.
Hello, my name is David Wren and I am a Senior Lecturer in Graphic Communication, and I am Evan's Dissertation Supervisor this year.
Hello, my name is Evan Pritchard. I'm a graphic communication student at Cardiff School of Art and Design, and this is a conversation exploring the research topic that informed my final year dissertation project. Can second-hand clothing markets support a circular economy, and how can we facilitate consumer clothing demand whilst being environmentally conscious? This paper will compare cultural beliefs and subjective norms in different pockets of the globe regarding the consumption of second-hand garments. The focal discussion will be the contrast in East Asia and Western countries, and how people interpret second-hand clothing, whether that be through demand or adoption.
So, Evan, when we start this research project at level 5, we task you with identifying 3 keywords. So, can you start us with your keywords and explain how that's awarded?
The keywords for my research project was circular economy, sustainability, and contemporary culture. I think these 3 words or 3 phrases are very relevant for my subject matter, as it's what sort of keeps the gist of the business going and projects forward any sort of economic projections.
Right, I think it finishes there. So the point that I was making, and apologies about the audio right at the beginning, so this is a graphic design student who's actually been sat in groups with our fashion students who've all of a sudden been influenced by the amount of waste that they're talking about. And we've heard quite a lot of discussion about this. And actually, as a consequence of this, has actually fed this into their dissertation work, which was an entrepreneurial project using the ONCOM framework to support that, and then fed into their final practical work. So that's when you really start to see the influences of it. You can go and listen to the rest of it yourself. And apologies because the audio was a bit muffled at the beginning, but then you can actually hear where they were coming from. So I think, that was just to highlight the power, but I'm just going to literally finish on a question I finished on yesterday. So if innovation is the successful exploitation of new ideas that generates value for the world and has impact, we're here as educators to create spaces for our students to be innovative. That's how I see it. We're not the ones generating innovation. So my question is it innovative curriculum, or do we design experiences that enables innovation? And actually, I think it's all of it. Thank you for listening.